Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. I see a lot of people have jumped in on time, which is awesome. But we are going to give people a couple of minutes to fill the proverbial room. But anyway, if you're just joining now, welcome.
People coming in thick and fast. That counter is going up like most stock traders wish their counters go up.
Everyone investing in AI companies for the last couple of years, hey, Kevin?
Yeah, definitely. Apparently the JSE bar is quite low for listing. It's only 2 bar or something like that. So if you've got a fledgling company and you've got a great idea, now's the time.
I think that's Alltex, surely not the JSE. In any event, that's some free advice to everyone. If you want to start a little AI company on the side, just list it and people will buy. Guys, we're just talking nonsense while we wait for everyone to join. It's
Totally.
1:12, but welcome. And please mute yourself. We probably have people in the room muting you, but it'll help if you do it yourself. Not that we don't want to hear from you, just it's distracting. We're up to 53 people already, which is very, very good. I think we'll slowly start kicking off. Welcome again if you've just joined now. This is a regular event for Turrito, our Bytes and Bytes lunch session. I'm going to do a little
intro. My speaker's not.
Oops. I'm going to do a little intro, and if you've attended these before, which many of you have, I apologize, but we are deliberately keeping these short and sweet. They're in the middle of a work day. We don't want to take away from your time. We're very cognizant of your time and respect it. We have sent you Uber vouchers. The idea is that you get to eat your lunch, so you're not wasting, business time. And hopefully we're teaching you something new and useful and something that's going to add value. We also love your ideas for future events. So we do these once a month, maybe once every 6 weeks. And if you've got any ideas, we get lots of ideas from everyone who attends these events, which we love. And if any of you have any ideas for future events, please email us. Without further ado, in fact, before I introduce my esteemed co-host Kevin, I just want to talk about the topic briefly. We got an incredibly quick RSVP on this event, which we're really excited about, and it obviously talks to the fact that it's very topical, it's very important, and Kevin's an expert in this field. In fact, when we started talking about the topic, Kevin brought up some things I'm immersed in this stuff, as a bunch of the people in the room are, and he's talking about stuff I've never heard of in my life. This topic is something that's always been important, but now suddenly it's super important with the adoption of AI. I'm not going to bore everyone with the details. You've RSVP'd because you know that this is an important topic. Unfortunately, up until recently, it was a terrible topic, data tagging or going through reams of data on SharePoint or OneDrive or in the entire estate, and marking data as sensitive, or setting permission levels in groups, and then stuff changes, and then someone accesses the CEO's OneDrive and you get shouted at. It's a crappy job. So there's a bunch of related topics, but it all comes down to this idea of data readiness and your organizational maturity. And the reason it's super topical right now is because of AI. AI can turn a receptionist into a hacker if this stuff is not set up properly. Not just AI, there's obviously apps and other and security concerns, but the reason everyone's suddenly paying a lot more attention, let's face it, is because of AI. So here to talk about it is Kevin Mortimer from Megin. This is a company we work very closely with. We do a lot of projects with Megin, and Megin brings certain expertise to the table in the back end. And hopefully by now, if you're in this room, you know what Turrito does. We handle, the environments and the licensing and hosting, connectivity, all that sort of stuff. But Megin, with a lot of our more complex projects, is actually the brains behind some of this stuff. So without further ado, I've talked too much. Oh, one more thing is questions are welcome. It's going to be completely up to Kevin about whether he stops mid presentation and answers those questions. If it's topical, he might do that. Usually what we try and do is answer questions at the end, if there's time. Like I said, we're very, very sensitive to your time. And if we're running over, we're probably going to end it. But if there's time, we'll happily answer your questions. Go ahead and type them in the meantime if you've got any. Without further ado, Kevin, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for that intro. Very kind. So AI, we're hearing it everywhere. Every single software company, product company out there is using it like a new spice to make their existing product more interesting and taste a little bit better. It promises, so much, and it definitely can deliver that value. There's no doubt about it. It's proven it, and literally the landscape is changing weekly. We're finding ourselves with the head of engineering and all of our developers having to stay up to date and learning something new that's come out that's updated the way we would have done something yesterday. A proposal done 2 months ago for someone, we're already having to rethink how we would do it if they come back to the table now. So it's constantly evolving. It's evolving so quickly. But the one thing, the two things actually, that really stand out and that are the building bricks of all of this is how ready is your data? Because data is everything in this. And even more so, is your organization ready from a maturity point of view? You get one right and not the other, and then AI can be dangerous. So that's a little bit about what I wanted to chat about today. And just to kind of just highlight the keys to success in this. And it's very informational. Everything that I present here is stuff that you might be doing already, might be considering to do, might not have started yet already, but already discussing and forming the idea. But almost every organization out there is already starting to think, okay, how is AI going to help us? But not just help us in the small things like draft an email, find a spelling mistake. I got this legal letter. Let me check if Guacamole or Copilot can figure out the mistake the other attorney made, but like truly drive business value, not just as a fact checker or as a really good alternative to your favorite search engine. And the key in that is the readiness of your data. So when we look at that and we go and say, well, what do we mean about the readiness of data? Well, it is literally, what is the state that your data is in your organization today? Do you have quality data, or is there just loads and loads of unusable private data floating around important HR folders or important financial review folders because someone accidentally saved something in the wrong place? Is what's contained in the document that you're thinking of using as a context library for your AI actually accurate? Is it structured? Is it compliant? Is it secure? How much of it is there? And then the fifth dimension, which is the one that's the least thought of in our experience and in what we've been exposed to, is the lineage of the data, its freshness. To use a skydiving term, its recency. How recent is it? When was the last time it was actually used, this data? Because if it's very old, it might have absolutely zero relevance, and in which case it becomes a problem. And why is that critical? Well, AI scrolls through data so rapidly, so quickly. We just did a test this morning where we uploaded a whole bunch of information into a small model that we'd built that's running on P6000 NVIDIA cards, right? It's a 300,000 Rand graphics card. They're pretty new. We ran a model through that, and it digested 75,000 lines of an Excel document in 2.5 seconds. That's how fast AI can consume data. It is ridiculously quick. And that's just little GPUs we have in our lab. Now we're not scaling to what these big guys are using, where they're using, B100s and top of the line, and they got thousands of these cards. You feed it garbage information, it's going to give you a completely inaccurate model. That's where you get these things that people talk about bias, and you're just not going to see any ROI on your project. And normally it's unstructured data that gets there. In most projects that we see, that data sitting in SharePoint. And the reality is that's the one area that we can make structured. By definition, SharePoint is structured data, but it's turned unstructured over the years because people haven't been able to use tagging correctly. And if you look at the early iterations of manual metadata tagging, it was horrendous and you couldn't keep up with it. And most people's initiatives on that failed purely because it just doesn't scale. Manual tagging doesn't scale, right? But there's also on top of that is, all the regulatory risks. Rules are forever changing. When manual metadata first came out, Poppy wasn't even fully launched yet. So now what do? You go back through all of those libraries and backdate and re-update your tagging, etc. But it's also difficult to understand what's contained within those documents, and is the tag that you gave it based on the file name actually the correct data that you're tagging against it. So looking at your data is absolutely critical. How we can do that, I'm going to touch on a little bit later, but I just want to highlight some of the things that we've got to be thinking about first. Data readiness on its own isn't enough, and we need to be looking at the security of that data. So in this space, I like to ask 3 questions when we're talking about data for AI. For whose eyes is this? So who should see it? So who's going to be looking at it all the time? Who needs to know about this data? So in other words, who could potentially this data be shared with? And are we comfortable with this person receiving and sharing that data? Not necessarily working on it, but getting to be exposed to it. And if someone needs to know about it, how long do they need to know about it? Is this long-term context? Are they going to be accessing it for quite a while? Is it just short-term? All of this affects how we're going to structure things. So then we start looking at those concepts around that: classification, encryption, access controls, and it's all about data minimization, right? So do we want to, how much can we reduce that context to get it into a usable format? So comprehensive data inventory here is what we're talking about. It's really critical. And we start using things like DSPM platforms. So in this case, using the Microsoft stack, we'd be talking here Purview and Syntex. I'm almost willing to bet that most people haven't heard of Syntex. And Syntex is the real magic in this. Purview is what sets the rules around how the data is going to get accessed, sets the flags on it, all of that kind of stuff. But Syntex is what reads the actual documents and keeps your metadata up to date. That then allows us to put security policies in place. So strong pre-AI security accelerates innovation. It's simple as that. But if you forget to do that, you're going to have all sorts of blockages come up. It could be internal blockages because the wrong stuff is coming up, user testing is failing. You could even have legal backlashes. It's crazy the stuff that can go wrong. One of the most popular stories, and we've actually seen it in it's a customer now of ours, but they vibe coded their way through this. So everyone knows the term vibe coding by now. And the real world impact was executive payroll was leaked. And that led to a whole explosion when someone asked the chatbot, what do my execs earn? And that information was exposed. So that exactly ties back to those 3 questions, because if they'd stopped to ask themselves and said executive payroll, well, for whose eyes is this? And if we need to share it, to whom are we sharing it to? And if we are sharing it to someone, because the answer probably to question 2 is nobody, but let's say there's one person, maybe someone in the accounts team who's actually got to load the payroll. For how long are they going to get to see that? Well, for a couple of hours, maybe, for enough to load the batch. So that just frames, the importance around your data security. Then it's the organizational maturity. So culturally, the big thing here is, and it's really thanks to the early people that were out there going, your job is at risk because of AI. And let's be honest, there are certain jobs and careers that you can already see it. We're seeing it just as a development company. The need for junior developers has become far lesser, but we've had to make the very hard call as a development company to say, yes, we do still want juniors, and we won't use AI to write some of this code. Why? Because if we never let juniors write the code, how do we ever get an expert? So, and ultimately it's the experts that make the AI consistent and able to deliver the really big projects. But that's just an example out of our world. But there is this cultural fear. And if you have a cultural fear against AI, what's going to happen? You're just not going to get adoption. You're not going to get that drive. You're not going to be able to scale through the change management it's going to take to change the organization into actually adopting AI and getting to the higher stages. So when we look at organizational AI maturity, what we did is we defined it into 5 stages, heavily inspired by Gartner and MITRE's. Although if you had to go to MITRE or Gartner sites, they don't name it like this. This is a synthesis of how we've seen it being adopted in our client base and in opportunities that we go and talk about. And we're finding that at least 80% of the companies that we talk to are sitting in stage 1 or 2. So if you're looking at this and you're going like, oh, well, I'm pretty much in emerging, that's actually not a bad thing, because it means you're ahead of the greater pack, and you're not behind. You're not, and that's the reality. No one's actually behind on this journey. We've got one customer that has gone enterprise-wide with the solution that we've built. And they're only on the top end, and they're only beginning to now be able to measure ROI. So stage 5, that transformative phase, that where AI is native in the actual culture and is driving every aspect of the innovation, we haven't even seen that yet. We're starting to only hear about that happening from overseas, where AI is so intrinsically throughout every aspect of the business. But going right down to the foundation and the emerging layers, which is what very much this chat is about, is that awareness and starting to do some ad hoc experience with it, getting your data foundations right, understanding your governance and ethics as the 2 primary pillars. And then we start looking at your talent, your culture, technology enablers, and then how do we actually realize true value, true business value out of what we're building in this. And that's where the exciting conversation comes in, when we start unpacking all these different things and we go, what can we do here? Nuances, edge cases, in all of this, we still can't forget, things like bias, non-compliance, all the different rules out there around POPI, GDPR alignment in some companies that are cross-border. It's not just POPI, you've also got to think of sort of regulations that sit overseas. And then the strategic side of things is, without the executives buying into this and without clear ROI metrics, then even perfect data and the greatest AI model is going to fail, because it just doesn't have the back end from the top. So I spoke briefly about, not really briefly, that was a good couple of minutes, but I've now spoken about sort of the 3 sections. And the good news is almost every organization already has the tools to do this. You just might not know about it. So in Microsoft SharePoint, there's a thing called Syntax. So a lot of people have been talking about Purview, and together with Purview, Syntax delivers a really, really powerful function. What Syntax will go and do is, once you've set it up, and it can be a little bit niggly to get it going and all of that, it will turn all the ungoverned content in SharePoint, because remember I said earlier, kind of by definition, once you've put data into SharePoint, it's structured, but it's ungoverned because it might not be correct, and it might not be tagged correctly and all of this kind of stuff. Syntax will go and read all of that data. It will delve into it and will literally read it page by page. It sits under, it's a pay-as-you-go thing, but you can trigger it as frequently as you like. And it will go and it will build out all the columns in your document library that you've defined. So you can tell it to go and look for locations or specific content types. It will find it. Basically, it's machine learning, and it's reading through all your documents and it's assembling all the stuff. But it's not just around data classification and tagging. there's models built into Syntex that will allow you to actually create content. So content assembly. So for example, Syntex can write you a proposal. So it has AI capabilities together with Copilot, Purview, and all of these things. And it will, and it does these things for you. So it's a really powerful product. It's part of SharePoint Premium now, so that's a recent change. And we're finding that almost every single major environment where we need to apply metadata to help fix that, we're using Syntex for it. It just takes all the man hours out of it, especially in SharePoint heavy customers environments, and even highly customized document models, it will get in there. You can combine it with Power Automate for end-to-end flows, which makes it even nicer because you don't need to run this constantly every single minute of the month. What we've done with most environments is we set up Syntex to kind of just go, because it runs so quick, to every 6 months go and just do an update of all the meta tags. And we run that with Power Automate. Just to give a brief idea, this is probably a very terrible screenshot, but you can kind of see, like, it can even look at an image and it will drop an image tag in there to say city outdoors. So it's really, really useful from that sense. So then what's the roadmap to an AI ready organization? So the first part is assess. Where are we at today? What's our current data look like? What is our maturity? It's a simple audit. We can assist with that. Turrito certainly can. We can as well if they need us. They got the brawn and the beauty. Maybe we can bring some brains using Colin's analogy. Then we pilot and structure the data on some high value libraries. We consider using MS Syntex. Maybe your pilot libraries aren't big enough for us to warrant needing to do that. Then we govern and we train. We build some governance and training around it, and then we can scale, iterate, and use Copilot with that. Copilot Studio is getting better and better. I used to be really against Copilot. I used to think it was probably one of the dumbest AIs out there, but they've caught up. I will give it this credit. It's actually become pretty decent now, to the point that we're starting to roll it out in more and more of our customers. Before, I was like, no, rather go Azure Foundry and let's use proper AI models. Don't touch Copilot. But Copilot is really caught up, and it's a really decent AI now. And there are some of the success metrics. Definitely set yourself a data quality score. That drives your time to insight. And the key takeaway really is just get your data ready and your organization maturity. And you can see some of these sort of people banding them around. In 4 weeks we can move from AI curious to AI ready. But really start with your data, start at your maturity, take a serious look at things and go, is what we have good, or are we just dumping everything we're in there and hoping that the AI can take care of it and figure it out? You probably will, but you won't get the results that you're looking for. So in short, readiness isn't really a project. It's a continuous journey, like I already mentioned earlier on. Every couple of months, you're going to want to come back and do that. But at least using tools like Syntex or other DSPMs out there, it's a low risk, high reward starting point in SharePoint setups. And then the short-term wins obviously build momentum, and then long-term you start driving into innovative organizations and all of that kind of stuff. And to, again, start with small pilot data structures, that also constrains the budget. It doesn't make it an open-ended thing where you just keep spilling money. Recently, just to give an example on how you can spill money, there aren't many companies out there that truly understand how much AI is going to cost them, especially around the token use. There's a company that we know that they do assessments around genomic and proteomic information. They decided to start using AI. They've never made a loss in 18 years, but now they've made a loss 6 months in a row because they're not using data scientists, they're using AI. The AI tokens are just out of control. And that's the risk that you have when you just throw data at it without any tagging, without anything, and you don't put any rules on it. You just say, off you go.
I'm sure everyone's heard the story about McDonald's, using Claude for their chatbot, and then when people figured it out, they started asking the McDonald's chatbot for coding advice, and that apparently also ran up tens of millions of dollars of token use. If you haven't heard that story, go and look it up because it's hilarious, especially because there's now memes of people having a chat. The bot says, "How can I help you today?" And the person says, "I'd like 2 Big Macs and a Coke." And it goes, "Cool, where are you?" And then the guy says, "And by the way, I need help with this module because I'm having a conflict and whatever, this thing is not working in Azure." And then it gives like detailed instructions, step-by-step instructions on how to fix it. Anyway, very funny. Kevin,
That's
can I
pretty
give
much
another
into
example? Is
Q&A.
that, yeah, okay, brilliant. Another example, I was just at a really interesting conference in Zurich, a Microsoft conference, and one of the partners, a security partner, told this story. For those of you who've been in the Microsoft world for a while, there's the fictitious company called Contosa that they always use for examples. And there's a project, Project Obsidian is one of the examples they're using to talk about exactly what Kevin's just talked about, the risk of not managing your data properly before you switch on AI. And the Microsoft partner that led the talk that we were talking about swears that this is based on a true story, which I thought was really interesting. It's very believable. So it's anecdotal. This is not gospel truth. But the story is that someone at a listed company heard some, water cooler discussions around a possible acquisition. She used Copilot to search for documents around the acquisition and what was going on, and she found, sure enough, this big listed company that she worked for was about to do an acquisition. She then thought she was being clever and took those documents out of the organization into ChatGPT, her private version of ChatGPT, and said, "Listen, I work for this company. They're about to do an acquisition. How can I take advantage of this?" And ChatGPT said, it's pretty simple. It's a listed company. Like, this is a well-known, company they're about to buy. You can expect the share price to go up, 20% based on, similar examples. So she bought a small, call it $5,000 worth of shares. That's not the leak. What happened next is that tons of people around the world use ChatGPT for investment advice, and ChatGPT started recommending that company. And suddenly, tens of thousands of people all over the world were investing in this company that had no press, they had no reason to suddenly be interesting. It drove the share price up. Then they announced the acquisition and were already overvalued. And it led to an investigation which came via the wire through ChatGPT to this woman and Copilot and unprotected data. So that might be entirely fictitious. This partner that was talking about it swears that it isn't, but whether it is or isn't, it's a very believable scenario if you're not doing this properly. Kevin, thank you very much. That was
My
awesome.
pleasure.
Really appreciated. Guys, we do have some time. We want to sort of finish up in the next 5 minutes. So if anyone does have any questions, now is your opportunity. You can switch off your mic and talk to us if you want. You can type something in the chat. Feel free. Otherwise, we can also end early, and I hope you've gotten your Uber voucher and had a decent meal. If it wasn't a decent meal, we don't want to hear about it. You need to complain with Uber. Good luck with that. But hopefully you've enjoyed it. Kevin, was there anything else? Any last points?
No, I pretty much covered all of it. I think, the big thing out of all of this is just, set forward with a plan in mind. That's, I think, the biggest key. I know we phrased it around data and around organizational maturity, but the big thing is sometimes, you want to start with the end in mind, begin with the end in mind. This is one of Stephen Covey's favorite, rules to success, and begin with the end in mind. So you actually go and you start off with this whole journey and you say, sure, I want to use AI, but like, what am I actually trying to achieve? What is the real value I'm trying to drive in my business? And then work back from there. So your first step on the journey is obviously data organizational maturity. But the one thing is AI is, to be honest, no different to any of the other computational models we've done throughout time in IT when we've built software. It's just, it's a lot faster and it's a lot better. And don't get me wrong, AI is a what it is. But begin with the end in the mind when you start with your plans. And then from there, we start on the journey. But if you're just doing AI for the sake of doing AI, then you're not going to achieve much.
Agree. Okay. I see lots of people didn't get the voucher. Maybe I put my foot in it and we had late entries, or maybe we didn't send vouchers this time, so I might get in trouble after the session. I'm feeling a little bit nervous. But rest assured, we will we will sort it out. And we do have a question here around the topic, which is, can you please explain the SharePoint Premium pricing and how that product you talked about, how does it work? And is it, related, or how does Copilot licensing impact this, Kevin?
Yeah, so the Syntex pricing is a pay-as-you-go model. So you don't buy it on an EA agreement or a CSP agreement. And it works per page, per image, but it's enabled through SharePoint Premium, which is activated exactly the same way as, say, Teams Premium would be. So it's a single CSP SKU. You add it per user, and whoever is going to be doing the syntaxing, I suppose, the tagging, you assign them the SharePoint Premium license, and that will depend on whatever CSP pricing agreement you have with your favorite supplier, like Turrito.
Precisely. That was going to be my point. Is we obviously we talk about these things, and we have most of the people in the room are IT people, so we have these sessions so that we're teaching you new things, hopefully, and you're welcome to do it yourself. But we've seen the movie, and we bring in the experts who have seen the movie even more than we've seen the movie. So if you need help with any of the stuff, obviously reach out to your Turrito account manager, and we'd happily guide you or jump in. We have another question here. Let's say we use AI, but we want to fix it. We want it to fix things like help making, get a patent cheaper, less money for legal, haha. By doing your own draft to trademark if we partnered. I don't understand that question, Colin. Can you add a bit more? And while
or maybe Colin can unmute and just talk us through it. Maybe not.
Sorry about that. Sorry, it seems like it's not possible for me to join the chat properly. But
no, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I struggled a bit now, but it was locked. Anyways, what I'm asking is, let's just say you have an AI like that you guys make use of, that you guys developed, but because let's just say there's something with our company that we wanted that's more designed for us. And as I know is there's different designs and maybe it's something unique and different, but we want to trademark it or and get a patent for it, but then you need a lawyer, of course. But usually they do all the research and everything and they'll charge you for that. So is there a way, for example, if you partnered with you, that you guys, let's just say, make everything easier by searching and getting a draft for a lawyer that way? Like using AI for that purpose to make everything easier instead of you having to give them more work to do where they'll charge you for that. Is that possible?
Yeah. So in short, yes. The big thing that you got to obviously do in this case is you got to get your high level solution design together. So you've got something that you want to build, you want to patent that, you got to get that whole solution design together, because I can tell you one thing, if once you run off to Spoor and Fisher or whoever to actually get the patent done, they're going to need a stack of documentation so that they can prove to CIPC or the patent office. Is it? Yeah, no, not CIPC. It used to be CIPC. What is it called? CIPRO.
Yeah.
It is still CIPC. I can't
So
remember
yes,
now.
it is. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's
yeah.
patent office as well.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, it's
So
the
it's just like
specific
getting
patent
your
office. So
yeah, so it's like
they
getting your
need a
design. Yeah,
stack. Yeah. So we've
awesome.
been through this with the Megin Group. We've got a little initiative that we're busy trying to patent at the moment. And
See.
one thing I say is get your solution diagram and your solution design, not diagram, your solution design
Blueprints and
rock
everything.
solid, everything, your
Yes.
blueprints, so that you can precisely
Yeah.
explain why yours deserves a patent.
I understand. So
Because
Turrito does help maybe have developers that can assist with something similar to this. If you want to, let's just say, partner and you wanted to design something that's maybe for your
yeah,
company, but you want to make use of something, example, like what you guys designed as well, is that possible?
Sure. I
so
assume this is a software. Is it a software product?
Yes, technically the
Yes.
infrastructure is designed. It just needs to become basically an application for like a computer as well. So everything is done.
Sure. Yes. We'll by all
Yes.
means let's chat. Yeah.
All
yeah,
good.
we can
Thank
take
you.
it.
Ryan, is there a Microsoft Syntax pricing estimation tool? Kevin, is there a way to figure out what it's
Yeah,
going to cost?
yes, there is. Yeah, it's under your pay as you go Azure tools. Microsoft may have moved it since I last looked at it, because Syntax actually used to be consumed directly through Azure. They recently moved it into SharePoint Premium. So it used to be Microsoft Syntax and was a function of Azure, but they've moved it into SharePoint Premium.
Ryan,
So the last
Ryan,
I checked, it was still under there.
I'll make sure we find it for you and I'll drop you a mail with exactly where to find us, that estimation tool. And then, yeah, just to comment, Dinesh currently implementing an AI policy for the group, which I think is a very good thing to point out, because that's actually one of the first starting points, which a lot of people are skipping. I mean, we all hate, I'm generalizing here, but most of us hate policy documents and governance and all that sort of stuff. But it is a very important first step. So if you haven't done that, I think we're sort of assuming you have, definitely get your AI usage and management policies in place for the whole company.
The one thing if I can just jump in there, sorry, just to help out with that AI policy, the one thing that you guys might want to look at is under Microsoft Defender, there is a Microsoft Defender for cloud apps. Actually look at using Microsoft Defender for cloud apps, because with that you can detect and block uploads to unsanctioned AIs. So that's just a really important part to add to your AI policy, to say that if it's not sanctioned, like we haven't sanctioned the use of ChatGPT as an example, or whatever, then you can actually just also help restrict that using Defender for cloud apps.
Brilliant. Oh, you've reminded me of something else, Kevin, which is that there is a new tool. I'm pasting the name of it in the group. Microsoft loves acronyms. This is no different. DSPM. It's brand new. I also learned this about this. It was announced at the end of last year, but it's pretty much brand new, and I learned about it when I was at that conference. And this is also, it's a new dashboard. It's a new view of what's going on in your estate in terms of data security, but very specifically around AIs, whether it's Copilot or third-party AIs. So a hell of a good tool. That's also something that we're very familiar with. So again, if you need help with that, please shout. Guys, we are almost at 20 minutes to 1, so do not feel bad if you have commitments and you need to jump off of the session, please do. I see a couple more questions which we're going to handle, but otherwise, if you do need to run, please don't feel bad. You're welcome to jump off. Lebo Hung's got a question: is there an AI tool to migrate data from Teams sites to a shared drive, either on-prem? Don't say on-prem. Ugh, shivers. Or to blob storage. We need to migrate the data and then delete the Teams from Teams. We desperately need that one. Kevin?
You want to remove data from Teams, but not remove Teams, as it were. So yeah, okay. Look, there are ways that you can migrate data out. There's a ton of different tools out of there and approaches. Yeah, it's something that that we have done and do. Normally, the scenario where we're doing that is when a person, when they first adopted Teams, didn't quite understand channel limits, team structures. They went bananas, data's everywhere, and then they want to create a brand new team architecture, and they can't just go and tank their entire tenant and start from scratch. So in those scenarios, you move all the data out, put it onto blob storage. Yeah, so absolutely it can be done. Not sure if there's an AI tool for it, but you can build AI skills around it. So if you know how to build skills and create a connector for it, then I would just go and build a skill and then have that skill repeated.
Yeah. Lebogang, definitely. I don't think you need an AI tool like Kevin's saying. There's actually easier ways to do that. And like you say, put it in a blob storage. Cold storage won't cost a fortune, and just tuck it away as a bit of an archive in case you need it. That is definitely something we can help with. Turrito and Megin. Michael, can you use AI to create an AI policy? Absolutely. None of us are typing policy documents anymore from scratch. If someone in the room says they are, they're lying. So by all means, use AI. As always, that comes with a disclaimer, like double and triple check it. What I love, Kevin talked about it earlier, is Copilot 6 months ago was embarrassing. It was like not even comparable to the other AI tools. Now that you can choose whether you want Claude or ChatGPT in the background, it's gotten amazingly good. I just used Copilot last week to create some policy documents, and it nailed it. One thing I would recommend is don't lead the witness. That's always my advice with prompting, is don't tell it specifically what to do, because then it'll do that. Rather say something open-ended like, I've got no AI policy documents. Give me a list of policy documents you'd recommend, and then ask me any questions around my company that you think are relevant, and then create the documents. So it will tell you, it recommends you need these 8 policy documents. It'll then ask you questions which, are you in manufacturing? Do you need to adhere to GDPR? Or, do you have data sovereignty issues? So it will ask you the relevant questions, and then it will create the policy document afterwards. That's completely different than if you just tell AI, whatever it is, Copilot, ChatGPT, or whatever, if you just tell it, make me a AI usage document. It'll make one for you, but it's not going to be good enough for your business. So, keep it open-ended, ask it to make recommendations or ask you questions before it creates the documents, and it can do a bloody good job.
Yeah, little tips on that as well is definitely, for example, create a project first. Give context to the project, give some context sources to it, put some rules in on tone. For example, don't use semicolons and em dashes to connect thoughts, because that's the first way you can detect if a document was written by AI. If you see em dashes, there is no key on the keyboard that can type an em dash, but AI will sprinkle em dashes all over the place. So if you see an em dash in text, it was written by AI. So little things like that you can just do, put all those rules into the project. That way also it retains the context of your conversation that drove the creation of the document, which means if you have an idea a week later and you go like, oh, I need to add this, you go back to the project and all the context is still there, and it's not trying to use context from other chats to influence the document that you're creating.
Great. Thank you. I think just cognizant of time, I think we've run out of time, and we're spot on time. So I'm very happy that we've sort of done a good job, and I hope everyone's enjoyed this and learned something new. And we look forward to seeing you in the next ones. Have an awesome day. It's almost Friday. Have a good weekend after that, and good to see you guys.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Cheers, guys.
Ciao.
Thank you very